Hey, it's Fitz, and if you don't know who I am, here's a quick bio. I'm a veteran sports journalist who writes, does TV, radio, daily YouTube videos, and I'm a longtime podcaster. Also, I have metastatic stage 4 prostate cancer that came out of remission in January of 23. During the pandemic, my doctors advised me to stay at home, and the Life of Fitz podcast was born. My original diagnosis forecast that I would be dead by age 60. But as I start season 5 of this podcast, I am 60 and still calling the many friends, athletes, coaches, colleagues, and medical advisors who I've met throughout my life. Oh, and I'm still hitting the record button and now doing so on video. Welcome to my life and the Life of Fitz podcast. Presented by the great people at Blueville Nursery in Manhattan. Welcome to another edition of Life of Fitz, and this one's going to be kind of a philosophical one, because I believe you meet people for purpose. Some people are sent into your life, and some random acts of kindness come back and reward you. It was a hot August day as parents were dropping off kids, freshmen to K-State for their college journeys to begin, and Becky and I were waiting in the outside corral where you can drink at Taco Lucha in Aggieville, our favorite spot in Manhattan. If you're not familiar, when you're in Manhattan, Kansas, you got to go there. And you're going to wait. And this night, we were told 3 hours wait. It's a small place. They flip their tables. It's really incredible service and food. But it was only about 2. And in the process of waiting, a man came up and introduced himself, and it was Colonel Greg McLean, and introduced me to his son, Gunnar. And it was just a moment where you felt comfortable. You felt like this was something that, should have happened. Sometimes Becky and I'll be out and, someone will introduce and start milking the cow is what I call it. They're like, hey, how about this? Hey, what do you think of that? And you're just like, okay, yeah, you know what? I'm out with my wife. But this wasn't that way. It was just, some questions and back and forth. And I found out he's a tank commander in the U.S. Army and a K-Stater, and Gunnar was just starting his journey. We ended up eating together that night. We've been buddies ever since. It's just kind of fate. And that's sometimes how life works. I get pretty philosophical in this, and so does Greg, because Gunnar's gone through a tragedy in which he suffered severe burns over about a third of his body. And, Gunnar's a kid that sits in the front row of K-State basketball games in a K-State hat and sunglasses and a PowerCat sports jacket, and everyone knows who he is. He's an ongoing positive influence in that student section, very passionate about K-State basketball. The journey all adds up to something, as K-State basketball has now been a big part of his recovery, and so has the K-State family. So now let's call my friend Colonel Greg McLean in a hotel room somewhere in Atlanta, but he's based out of Fort Moore, Georgia. And now here's my conversation with Greg McLean, a really special guy. And now there he is. Hello, my friend. How you doing? You're in a hotel room. Very, very nice.
I am, Tim. Thanks. It's good to be here. Gunnar's jealous that he can't be here, but maybe someday Gunnar can be here, not me. So that'll be good.
Let's start that. That's not particularly the reason why I'm having you on. You're a fascinating person on your own, but I've gotten to know your son Gunnar. K-Staters might know him from his persona in the student section, which isn't Gunnar at all. He's not that kind of.
It's true.
Yeah, I mean, he's pretty laid back, and but he's just like out there with his PowerCat coat. But he suffered a very serious accident. How long ago it's been? It feels like it's been a year ago.
25 days today.
How many?
25 days.
Hadn't even been a month, and he's through all his skin grafting and everything.
Yeah. So it happened on the 21st of May. Is that right? Yeah. And so we were out working on our car, and Gunnar, I have a 65 GMC, and the carburetor backfired, and Gunnar caught on fire from there. And so they life flighted him to, got him to Columbus Hospital, and then they life flighted him here to Grady Memorial. So since that time, Gunnar's had 5 surgeries, and we believe the doctors have said on the last one was last Thursday, which would have been the 13th of June, that that's his final surgery. So although that sounds amazing, and it is, we're so grateful for the team there at Grady and the doctors that have worked on him and the prayers that everyone has been giving Gunnar. The mobility part of having new skin that's from himself on different parts of his body is now where they take that skin from, and then where the skin now is on his body, on both his arms, his whole entire chest and belly, his left thigh, and they've taken that skin from his right thigh and his back, and so that's Gunnar's challenge now, is gaining full range of motion in his arms, his chest, his back, his legs, as he goes back through that. And so he is making incredible strides. And the doctors, what they told us 3 weeks ago, we couldn't see what we see now. They're like, oh, he's going to be fine. But 3 weeks ago, we see, they tell us he's going to maybe have to have brain surgery because they see a brain bleed. He may lose his left arm, and here he's on a breathing tube for 13 days, and now here we are. Gunnar is through the surgeries. They do see a great prognosis a year from now that he could be totally back to normal, but he is making huge strides each day, and his youth and his fitness is really playing a huge part of that. And then I would also say the prayers that people have given us. So it's just been fantastic.
I've spent a lot of time doing that. I love that kid. He's a special kid. Congratulations, aside from all this tragedy. And sometimes, as I can tell you, these moments bring out something extra in you. So I'm excited to see Gunnar back in Manhattan and spend some time with him, because Greg, he's a cool kid. He really is.
He is. He really is. Gunnar is someone that really cares about other people. He likes having an impact, I believe, in the world. I don't know if he likes having an impact, but I think his personality and how he cares about people creates impact. And we've really seen that, and we didn't realize his impact as the Army has taken me across the world, and Gunnar has made friends across this country and across the world, and the love that has came in from all different parts of the country and in Germany and Europe. It's not because of me or my wife Jacque. It's because of Gunnar and the impact that he's had on people's lives, and it's his personality and how he comes across and wants to be helpful and is thankful for everything that he's been given. And he's the same way. Those nurses, everyone just loves, I don't know. It appears to me that the nurses are fighting to see who can have Gunnar for the day, because they just enjoy being around him, because it's just infectious. He's just that type of person.
That's exactly right. So let's back up to your career. Well, let's go all the way back. Where'd you grow up? How'd you end up at K-State? And tell me a little bit about your college experience.
Okay. Yeah. So my wife and we're from Towanda, Kansas. So that is in between El Dorado and Wichita. Those of you familiar with southeastern Kansas, a small town. And my parents grew up in Towanda, and my grandfather was the pastor there at the church there, First Baptist Church of Towanda. And so we moved there when I was in 5th grade, and then graduated. Circle High School was our high school there. My wife's 4 years younger than me, so we didn't date or anything. But small town, we've known each other. I've known her since she was in 2nd grade, and I'm in 5th grade, and so we've had this lifelong connection. And so I went to Butler County Community College for a couple years, trying to figure out what I was going to do, and then decided to go to Kansas State. And I was searching, I would say. Yeah. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I think I always had a calling. I probably, could have done different things. I always wanted to maybe serve, but I just wasn't sure. And got to K-State, really followed my friends to K-State, and then fell in love with the university. And then from there, it's been all downhill, I guess, or uphill, or great. It's been a fantastic journey. My time at Kansas State, and then was there, and then had a lot of fun in Aggieville, probably more than most. Stepped away from college, and then enlisted in the Army, and then from there commissioned 3 years later, and then I've came back to K-State to finish things up, and then from there it's been no looking back. So
how many years? How many years
ahead.
in the U.S. Army?
So it'll be 26 years in September. That sounds crazy.
That is.
Yeah. So I graduated high school in 90. So born in 72, and then joined the Army when I was 26. Commissioned as an officer when I was 29-ish, a little older than that. Been married shortly after that, and then it's been no turning back. We've been all over the country and the world, and deployed several times. And I'm not G.I. Joe. I'm not Captain America. I'm just a small town Kansas kid that's enjoyed being in the Army and being around the people and serving. It's been a great. I'm very fortunate.
Yeah. Give me some of your stops. You've been, like you said, you've been all over the place.
Yeah. So I'm an armor officer. So I do tanks and Bradleys. And so my first stop was Fort Carson, Colorado, which is Colorado Springs. And then from there, Fort Benning, which is now Fort Moore. Went through officer candidate school. From there, Fort Knox, where I did my officer training. And then back to Fort Riley. It's the only time we served at Fort Riley. I can't get back for some reason. Would love to. And then we've gone to Fort Hood, which is now Fort Cavazos, which is near Killeen, which is in Killeen, Texas, near Baylor and near Waco, and central Texas. El Paso, we've been to El Paso, Fort Bliss, and we've been to Fort Leavenworth, and back to Fort Moore, and also in Hohenfels, Germany. We were there for 2 years. And then the other one would be Carlisle, Pennsylvania. We stopped there and that's where Gunnar graduated from. So that's been our, I guess, 26 years, 17 moves.
Wow.
But we've really tried hard, and I kind of mentioned that in talking to someone, to always stay connected to Kansas. So my wife's a Jayhawk. And so
this is a theme. Hold on. I found out my doctor is a Jayhawk. I was reminded with Connor Riley that he went to KU briefly, and now this has turned into a KU podcast, but that's okay. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, it's we definitely are a house divided, and she loves those Jayhawks, and I love the Wildcats. And over time, I will cheer for them now because when they're not playing us, because I love her. Love conquers all. Would not have been my stance in the 90s, that's for sure. But I cheer for him now because, and Jackie's the same way. Like, when especially when Gunnar became a Wildcat as a little kid, when they would lose, like we were at Baylor, and when K-State was number 1 in the nation, and COL McLean got hurt, we were at that game, and because we were at Fort Hood, we drove in, and there's Gunnar, and and he's crying after the game. It's an emotional game, a lot of things are on the table. And so, yeah, I mean, love conquers all, and we are house divided, but it's good, yeah.
Yeah, it's an amazing journey, but you're in the armored part of the U.S. Army. How did you end up there, and what are you currently doing in your career?
Yeah, so I'm a brigade commander at Fort Moore, and what I currently do is I'm in charge of the basic training for all armor soldiers in the Army. And so our scouts and our tankers do basic training, and then they go what we call advanced individual training, and it's 22 weeks long. And so my brigade and the phenomenal leaders that I have that in the brigade turn citizens into soldiers in 22 weeks. And then they, after 22 weeks, then they go to different parts of the country and the world and are now trained tankers or scouts in the Army, and they go out and fill those roles. And so then they're what we call, they go into a forces command structure, and then they'll go and throughout the Army and become tankers and continue their career from there. So we're the first stop as they do that transition to kind of understand the discipline, the physicality of being in the Army, how to be an athlete, the Army values, and then they're learning, the how to march, how to do all the things that you may see like in Stripes or whatever movies you may.
Oh my gosh, I was about to bring that up.
But it's also all the different technical skills they may have. They don't leave us as experts, but it's their first sense, right? The foundation of their skills that they learn before they go out and learn now from the rest of the Army and the leaders that are there.
Yeah, Stripes is a great documentary on basic training.
It was. It actually was.
It's I'm going to ask you maybe the nerdiest question I ever have on one of my podcasts.
Okay.
Talk about the journey of armored forces in the history of military, and what is their role in the current, if we're seeing conflict in Europe, Ukraine. What's the armored responsibility in those theaters?
So there's two aspects to the Armor Corps, right? We have the Scouts, which we are the Scouts, and things are changing but you go back to the cavalry days, right? So
right.
The cavalry of horseback, those, it is understanding, identifying, answering questions to allow commanders and leaders to make decisions based upon what the cavalry or what the Scouts find, which will then allow hopefully leaders to make the better decisions as they employ forces forward. Those same concepts are true today, although some of the characteristics have changed. Where now we may be able to have Scouts that are looking from space, or we may have technology from
drones,
air, all different sensors that are now there. The humans are still involved in that aspect, and the Scouts aren't doing the space stuff and the cyber stuff, but there's still a human aspect, and that's what Scouts are doing. Now the tanks, they're still probably the most lethal platform that is on the ground, and they're there to move in and destroy anyone in front of them, to allow either the Scouts or an infantryman to then move forward to occupy and take ground. But the tanks are there to either to provide support or to be the lethal force that's necessary in order to take ground and continue to move forward. And that aspect hasn't changed, whether it be speed, tempo, or lethality. That's what the tanks provide within our Army and for our armed forces. And as a land warrior, that's what we do, and that's what we're teaching here at. So it's 194th Armored Brigade is where I currently work and in command of, and I work for the U.S. Armor School there at Fort Moore, and it's just phenomenal leaders that I work for and work for me. But that's what we do. The aspect really hasn't changed. If you think about how tanks were possibly used in World War I, they were there to help the infantry move as they were moving from trench to trench, to help. Although the aspect has changed, we're still providing support. We're still there to provide lethality. And technology has improved, obviously, from 1918 to 2024.
I hope so.
But still, the aspect of what the tank does from World War I, World War II, really forward, from the Sherman to the Abrams, we're still there to close with and destroy with the enemy, and that's what I do.
It has always struck me as a really challenging environment for the soldier to be locked in this metal thing. But how has technology made that easier? I mean, are those things more comfortable now than, what we think of as a tank, where it's air stale, it's loud, you're uncomfortable the whole time?
Well, I would say I'm sure everyone would say, well, back in my day type of things, right? That it was harder, ones from World War I to World War II.
Absolutely.
I would say that the technology definitely has advanced that allows us to be able to find and close with and destroy the enemy a lot better than someone did in World War II. That is for sure. The creature comforts. I don't think when the Army spends money or the taxpayers spend that money, it's not really about making someone comfortable. It's really about protection,
Right.
and it's about making sure the equipment is secure and is so. Like, people say, well, there's air conditioning in a tank. Well, yes, but it's for the electronics that's in the tank. It's not for the soldier, right? So it's still very warm. It depends on where you're fighting, right? The environment is a part of that, and so it can be. The tank does have a heater, so sometimes it's easier for tankers inside when it's cold outside than it is hot, because in Iraq, for instance, it was very warm inside those platforms. So whatever the temperature outside, it's kind of the temperature inside the tank if it's open. You do get some air moving through there, but it's not.
Yeah.
It's not cozy 68 degrees, I guess what I would say.
Colonel, I'm not going to be able to serve. I need comforts. I need a nice chair, maybe a handy restroom, some snacks. I always like snacks, so I'm out. I'm not going to enlist.
But what makes the Army special really is the
Yeah.
people, right? And that's
Yeah.
kind of what has drawn me and I think kept me in this long. It's the people, and it's Americans from all over the world. Some that come and enlist because they want to become a U.S. citizen. Some that come and enlist for all different types of reasons, whether it be for a bad situation and they want to change their environment and change their future. Some because their parents have served, someone in their family has served. But the people are what make the Army special, because it really is. It's just like K-State, I would say, right? When you got people from small towns, big towns, from Kansas, from different states, from different parts of the world. It's the Army. It's the same way. We all come in and we're all focused on one thing and working as a team. And I think, as someone that enjoyed sports, wasn't always, the best athlete, but someone that always tried and worked hard, that aspect of competition, of being on a team and striving towards one goal, and that is, to support and defend the United States, Constitution of the United States. When everyone's fighting for one purpose, it's pretty neat. It's pretty special.
I'm a big believer when I talk to young people. Don't let the outside forces of the world define who you should be. Find what brings you joy, what fulfills you, and go do that. Whether it's military or being a sports journalist, working on cars, it doesn't matter. Whatever can put food on the table and brings you joy and never feels like work, as little as possible.
That's right. Absolutely.
That's what you're supposed to be doing.
Yeah. No, I think that absolutely. I think that is a great lesson. I think that's one that I try to pass on to my children. Like, I don't care what they do, as long as they feel like they're using the gifts that God gave them. They're fulfilling themselves each and every day. They're making themselves, their family, they're providing, they're doing what they're called to do. And if you're applying those gifts, I do agree, it won't feel like you're working.
Yeah.
Because it's what you're called to do. It's what you're blessed to do. And if you're giving back and making the country better, making your community better. I think the thing that stopped me from joining the Army 26 years ago was the fear of that first step, right? To leave my environment of Kansas, of my friends, of my family, and doing something that was unknown, and being able to, but now I know, right? Like, I encourage anyone to take that step into the unknown, because if you've thought about it, prayed about it, and that's what you're called to do, just take that leap, because God will be with you, and everything that you've done in that foundation will prepare you for what you're about to do. And once again, it'll just be a blessing to you.
Amen. Amen. I mean, you'll never know if you're a great swimmer if you don't jump in the pool.
That's right.
That's just how it works. Tell me more about your whole family, because I know Gunnar well, but
Sure.
he's not your only child. The other ones are pretty cool too.
Yeah. Well, I'd have to start with Jacque first. That's okay. Right.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
My wife, Jacque, she also is from Towanda, Kansas.
Yep.
She graduated in '94. She was a bit of an athlete, still I think has her name on the wall on a lot of the records for basketball.
That's cool.
At Circle High School. She went and played some ball at Butler and then kind of stepped away and said, nah, I don't really want to do this anymore. And so she went to KU. She graduated with a degree in exercise physiology. And, Jacque and I weren't dating all through high school. Her brother was one of my good friends. She was a year behind me. So I'm going to go off track here and tell our story here. And so, as I was in the Army and I was going to go to officer candidate school, I came back home and I was engaged to be married to another woman. And I had thought this was the girl for me. Well, anyway, it wasn't really working out how I had hoped. And Jackie's brother kind of came up to me and approached me at my brother's wedding and said, you need to move on. And Jacque was standing right behind him, and she just looked at me like she'd never looked at me before. And she goes, you need to move on. There's someone else out there. And she gave me that look like it was her. And I'd never thought of Jacque in that way before. And I was kind of looked at her and like, well, what do you mean? Like, who is it? And she just she didn't really say anything. So the next day, our moms worked together at Towanda Grade School. Or I guess it had been Monday morning. That was Saturday night. And my mom went up to Connie, my mother-in-law now, and said, Greg says that Jacque likes him. And Connie was like, well, yeah, everybody likes Greg. Like, who doesn't like Greg? The normal answer. And she's like, no, like she likes him. And she's like, no, there's no way. And so my mom leaves the office and Connie calls Jacque and says, do you like Greg? And Jacque, when she tells the story or is listening, she'll say she never thought about it until that moment. And she's like, yes. And Connie was like, oh my gosh, you got to tell him. So anyway, this kind of drags out for a couple of days. And eventually Jacque asked me to lunch, which wasn't unusual because we were friends.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And
during the part of lunch, she's like, hey, I think we should, give this a try. And so I'm home on leave for my brother's wedding, and then Jackie's brother's getting married, and everyone kind of scheduled their weddings in between my travels. And so I was home, and so the end of before I had to go to Fort Moore to go to officers candidate school, we're at Ryan's wedding now on another Saturday evening, and I'm getting ready to leave that following Tuesday, and we're on our way home from the wedding, and we're driving in my car, and I looked over at her, and we're both sad because I got to leave soon. Everything's going well, and she goes, I don't want to see you go, and I was like, I don't want to go either. I go, well, I guess we could get married. That's my amazing proposal.
Nice.
And she goes, okay. And that was Saturday night. We went and told our parents that night. Everyone was going to an after party at my now father-in-law's house. It's Monday morning. We went to the Justice of the Peace. We got married and came back 6 months later. And I think everybody thought we were crazy because we'd only kind of known each other for 30 days. And I was already engaged to some other woman. I'm sure everybody was like, what the heck is McLean doing? So anyway, now Jacque and I, we just had our 23rd wedding anniversary. And so it's been a blessing. And I'm so thankful that God put me and her together. So that's Jacque.
When you know, you know.
When you know, you know. And so anyway, so now we have two other children. So Gunnar's 19. He just finished his freshman year at K-State. And so my other son now, Colt, he will turn 17 in August. And he is very intellectual, loves to write. He's writing a book. He's very into like lore, Lord of the Rings type stuff. He's created his own worlds.
That's cool.
Yeah, it is cool. I think something's going to go from there. I've never probably, I mean, I'm sure some parents do, but I never thought I'd have a child that says, "Hey dad, can you log me on the computer? Cause I want to write my book." Like 12-year-olds, 13, 14-year-olds, that's not, I don't think that's normal. Right. Um, and it's not bad. It's not bad. It's just different. Right. And
Mm-hmm.
it's not what I would have asked my father. And so he loves to write. He loves to think. He loves to read. Um, and so that's Colt. And so it'll be interesting to see where God takes him as he continues to move through this adventure of life. My daughter Grier, she'll be a sophomore in high school. So we homeschool. That's also our
Mm-hmm.
journey. And so that's what Jacque has done since Gunnar was in second grade, and Colt and Grier have only known homeschool. And so as we move all around the world and nation, that has allowed us to kind of continue to plug into little homeschool communities. And so we do a curriculum called Classical Conversation. And so that's what we do. Grier is very active. She was a avid swimmer through USA Swimming, and now she's kind of transitioned as we moved here, and she's running cross country and running track, and she's a busybody, and she loves friends. She's very social. She's beautiful, and so I'm just blessed to have all three of my children, and that they've moved and put up with the moving. And it's a different journey, and they have than most people, right? As I took that leap 26 years ago, and now these four people have joined me for this adventure around the world, and so it's good as we've done that, and I'm really proud of all three of my children. Is they're all resilient, they're all Christians, they all love what they do. They're very strong in their beliefs, and I think the homeschooling that my wife has done has really allowed them to flourish in what they want to do, have them educated in a way that we believe is right for them and for us. It's not that we're anti-public school. I don't want anyone to say that. It's just what was right for us and our decisions we made to what we thought would be best for our children.
How are the two younger children handling Big Brother going through this?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I think it's been different for all of us, and seeing how the stress of this, mom and dad being, 25 days we've been away, and my mother-in-law and father-in-law uprooted. They're retired and camping. They full-time camp in their RV, and they packed up their RV.
Awesome.
and they were at El Dorado Lake, and they drove right down here 24 hours after it happened, and have been with Colt and Grier at Fort Moore with them. And so that's great, that they were able to do that for us. I think each of them are handling the stress and duress of this in different ways. But I think once again, the foundation of our faith has really helped bring us stay together. It doesn't mean that it's easy, but it does mean that foundation that really I would say Jacque has been able to do has allowed our children to continue to flourish in this time of stress and tragedy. I was just thinking, I could see how this could really impact marriages, right? Because it's Gunnar and me working on my truck, and it's still my responsibility, right? It's still my son, right? And so it'd be easy for Jacque to say, blame me, and why did you do this? How come you didn't protect him? And it's not that I don't have those feelings, and I'm sure she's had those feelings as well. But I think as our faith has informed us, right, that we believe God is sovereign, that has really helped strengthen our marriage in this time of tragedy, and allowed us to know and think through this process of, this was God's path for Gunnar, and this is God's path for all of us. And that if you accept that God is sovereign, then we've used that to help build us, and through this to understand that this is only going to make Gunnar better, and all of us will be able to take something from this that'll make us better leaders, better husbands, better wives, better brothers, better sisters, And so far, although I'm not saying it's been easy, there's been a lot of crying and there's been a lot of hugging and there's been a lot of praying. But every time that there has been brain surgery, lose an arm, get him off the ventilator, our faith has really allowed us to, and all the support from, whether it be from K-Staters, from people in the Army, around the world, like we feel all that. And we so are appreciative of everyone's support and help.
You know, as someone who's going through a challenge, I always tell people, you don't get to pick your path. It's set for you. You just don't know where it's going to lead, and all you're responsible for is trusting the ground under your feet and keep going forward.
Absolutely.
And sometimes that path is steep and rocky, but when you keep going forward, you get to the beauty at the top wherever you're headed. So just keep going forward, man. It's all you can do. And I see people kind of collapse in the face of challenge, and I'll be blunt. Every crappy thing that's happened to me in life has led to better days and made me a better person.
You know, it's Tim, what I would tell you, and when Gunnar met you for the first time when we walked away, you know, I told Gunnar about, you know, what was going on in your life. And although we didn't really know each other that well, I still followed your website, followed you, listened to your podcast, and understood what was going on from afar.
Yeah.
And Gunnar immediately was like, wow, like he seems awesome. He's really comes off like there's nothing wrong. And how is he still doing all the, because Gunnar was watching all your stuff, right? As a fan of K-State and sports. I would have never known that Tim Fitzgerald is having these problems. And so I would tell you that, you know, you're still having an impact. And I think, you know, the way you present, not just the way you're presenting sports, but the way you are presenting yourself, you're having an impact on people. And, you know, and Gunnar has made comments as we're going through this, like, hey, Dad, Fitz is going through cancer. I think I can go through some of this as well, what I'm going through, and it'll be okay. And so you're a great example to help a lot of people that go through different sorts of tragedies and different sorts of things in their life. So thank you.
Thank you. Let's take a short break and hear from our sponsor, Blueville Nursery.
For competitively priced landscape design, irrigation, and lawn maintenance, turn to Blueville Nursery, a family-owned business with more than 50 years of experience. You can trust the Blueville team to design and create a landscape that will accentuate your property's aesthetics. And visit our garden store 6 days a week for the best products in the area. From ornamental trees, shrubs, and flowers, Blueville has it all. Blueville Nursery, located on West Anderson Avenue in Manhattan, Kansas.
Now, let's return to the studio. But let's go back to that night. It's been just 10 months ago or so. You were dropping Gunnar off at Kansas State. You did what a lot of good K-Staters do. You went down to Taco Lucha de Aggieville. You know, I'll never forget that night. We walked up, and you know, a typical summer night. It's Friday night, I think. I don't know, but it's crowded. It's you know, and now at some Aggieville establishments they have the corrals where the city of Manhattan allows you to drink as long as you're in the corral. So we're outside waiting. It's a typical hot August day. And when we walked up, the hostess, they're so awesome there. It's going to be 3 hours. And I'm like, it's worth it. We'll be over here. Just bring us some Pacificos and margaritas. And that's how we met, just out in the corral. We both had a table for two. We're waiting on it for hours. It became a table for four. And we hit it off, the four of us, didn't we?
Absolutely. And I don't know if I could go back even further, and I don't know if you remember this, but as a member of your website for a long time, you know, in 2009, I was getting ready to go back to Iraq for a second time, and Gunnar was, what would that have been? So it had been 4 or 5 at the time. And I wanted to take Gunnar to a game. We were going to come back to a game before I deployed. And I posted on the message board, like, hey, trying to come back from Fort Hood to go to a game. Just wondering if anybody has, some tickets or whatever. You messaged me and said, hey, we got a donor or somebody, I don't know, that would like to give tickets to you and your son. Just come on up and they'll be at will call, or I don't even remember. But we ended up sitting at the time it was the new, the student side with that infrastructure there. And you could sit inside and outside and have food and drink, but go down. And Gunnar and I came up to a game, and that really solidified Gunnar being a Wildcat from that point on, because that was his first game where he was like, bam, right there at K-State. And so you've had an impact on Gunnar and me, since 2009. I don't know if do you even remember?
I remember it. I didn't remember it was you. That's
so
that's the Lord working.
And so when I saw you in the corral, I think that's one of the things I've learned through a lot of different things is never be afraid to just introduce yourself and say hello.
Yeah.
Because you never know what's going to come from. It's not like I was trying to be your, kiss your butt or be your friend, but just say hi and whatever. And so I just said, hey, I don't even remember if I called you Fitz or said, hey, Tim Fitzgerald or whatever. But I was like, I told Gunnar, hey, this is Tim Fitzgerald, And you were gracious enough to engage in a conversation. And maybe at first I was like, well, you never know. People are going to be like, well, okay, dude, I'm just trying to be out with my wife. Like, can you just have some peace? Like,
yep, it happens.
But we hit it off, and it was great. And I appreciated your graciousness, because I think you got called before us, and you were like, hey, let's turn this into a table of four. And then we had dinner together, and it was great. And you and I now I consider you a friend.
Absolutely.
And it's been great since then, and you were gracious enough to give your number to Gunnar, some guy you met 4 hours ago, and said, you call me if you ever need anything. And I know Gunnar probably never took you up on that offer.
Very self-sufficient kid.
But it's been great. And I know Gunnar, he would always say, I saw Tim. And Tim, it's neat how those little interactions and how God just provides little interactions here and there. Because you just never know what's going to come of these small little things and people that you meet and how relationships build from that.
And you have built a really cool relationship with the basketball staff. They brought you in to talk to the team. I know you and Gunnar were in the locker room. I can't remember what game it was, but he assumed his position over in the student section with his sunglasses, PowerCat coat, and ball cap, and you were kind of behind the benches. But that's really blossomed into something really cool.
Yeah, it's I give it all really to. So that's another. So how that occurred was, Samantha Jones works in 194th Armor Brigade, and she used to work on North Texas staff, and so she knew the staff. And so when Gunnar and I were out doing stuff during Christmas break, Miss Jones saw Gunnar, and they started talking that he's at K-State. I went to K-State. She's like, I know Coach Ream and all the staff that works there at K-State. And she goes, all in, and I go, well, we're going to go back and go to the game. She goes, like, well, I'll introduce you all. So once again, I'm sure Coach Ream gets weirdos all the time, or people that come and he let us come talk, and that relationship has really blossomed, and it's really Coach Ream and the entire staff, just how they've loved on Gunnar in this tragedy. But now I consider Coach Allen a friend, and he actually stopped by as he was seeing Acor a week or so ago. He stopped by and had just a few minutes. He's so funny. So I'll tell the story. He calls me and says, hey, are you at the hospital? And I was like, yeah. He goes, well, I sent a package. It's coming through Uber. I don't know how. I didn't know Uber did that, but it's coming. I go, well, do you need me to go outside? And he's like, yeah, go outside. So I go out, I'm at the front entrance, and I go, "Hey, I'm there." And he's like, I was in a Chiefs shirt or something. And I said, "I'm in the red." Tell him I'm the guy in the red shirt. So he's like, "Hold on." And I go, "Well, I can walk." He's at the wrong area. I go, "I can walk over there." He goes, "No, he sees you. He's coming your way." So he's acting like he's texting. Well, he pulls up and it's him. And he jumps out, totally surprised me. Gunner's in surgery. He's like, "Hey, I only got a few minutes, but I just want to come give you a hug and tell you that we love you and we're so praying for Gunnar and thank you." And I was like, who does that?
These guys are special.
These guys are special, and so I haven't shared that. That's the first time I think I told that story. And I don't put stuff on social media. It's not about that, right? It's just, these people are real. K-State's lucky to have them.
Mm-hmm.
And we're very fortunate to have them on staff, because they are real, and they're kind of doing what I think I try to do in the Army. They're taking young men and turning them into men of character. And I think that's something that all K-Staters should be proud of. And they're not doing it. They're not showing up at Grady Hospital because they're trying to get on social media and get hits to get recruits. They're doing it because they've built relationships with people, and it's who they are. That's right.
Yeah. I, sometimes you meet a person for a day, a moment, sometimes for years, but it's amazing what you can take away. If you sense the goodness and there's a bond, it's just incredible how it works. And I'm just consistently impressed with, well, really everyone in athletics. Football staff's amazing. Basketball staff, Gene Taylor, every coach I meet is so real. Gene's done a great job of bringing in people that fit K-State.
Yeah, I agree. And in the locker room, and I'm just a nobody, and I know that, right? But when I was in the locker room, Mr. Taylor was right next to me, and I pulled him. I said, "I don't know if you realize how special these people are," and I'm sure he does. And
yeah,
said, you've got something special, Coach, or Gene, and you need to make sure you don't let these people go, because I'm not around K-State as much as you are, but I've gone to school there and been a fan for a long time, and it's different.
It is.
It's different.
It is.
And Bill Snyder was great. Like, you can't take. I mean, it's just different. It's just different.
Yeah, I mean, we wouldn't be enjoying a lot of this without Coach Snyder. And but every university talks about family, but there's just something about K-State. And I don't know if it's our kind of the small town ag background. Yeah, even the kids from Kansas City that come to K-State kind of absorb that and understand the welcoming culture and what it's about. But when Gunnar had gone home to earn money for his sophomore year, and this happens,
that's right,
at the very start of that, and we posted his Venmo, and oh my gosh, did you get a response or what?
Oh my gosh. And yeah, I mean, we've raised almost $10,000 at this point for Gunnar through that. And this isn't, I mean, I think we had $1,000 donation, but a lot of it is $10, $20, $15. And it's hundreds and hundreds of people that saw Gunnar's picture, saw either your report or the TV report there at in Kansas City, and loved on Gunnar, because everyone would on the Venmo, so many people would write, "Oh, I know your son. Like, he's so cool. I can't wait to get him back at K-State. Here's $10." Like, I think that's something that I've learned through this is a lot of times in tragedies, a lot of what I've said to people is, let me know if you need something and I'll help you. I think from here on out, I'm just going to help, because no one's going to ask for help. Right. You should just help. And that's what, when you say, what's different about K-State, that's why I'm saying all this, is because all these people, and some of them aren't K-State fans, and I get it, but the people of Kansas and the people that Gunnar's had impact on, and it's just, they're different. Mm-hmm. And they're helping their own, and we are so appreciative of that.
So you texted the other day. I'm kind of in your text chain where I get these incredible daily updates. Gunnar's planning to be back in the fall. Is it
that's
possible?
Well, the doctors say yes. And so, he completed his last surgery on Thursday, and now it's his journey is to get full range of motion. And they believe that is still possible. And so I asked him yesterday, I was saying it's 65 days to the start of school. And one of my good friends from Fort Riley, Terry Tillis, said 64 days and a wake up. And that's kind of a lot of things that the Army guys say during deployment. And it's true. And I asked Gunnar, I go, is that okay? Like, is that a thing? He goes, yeah, I want to know how many days, because I want to be at K-State in the fall. And Gunnar's an ROTC there. And so the ROTC, he's got an ROTC scholarship. And so Gunnar just has to pass a physical before the end of the fall semester. And this isn't a physical fitness test. He has to pass a physical. And if he passes that physical, then they will pay for his school. He had a 3-year scholarship. So we're hopeful that Gunnar will be able to do that, and that he'll be able to be there in August to start classes. And that's the goal. And that's where that's where he's shooting for. And that's what Jacque and I are trying to help him achieve.
Amazing. The kid's amazing. I never expected that, Greg. I just never, ever thought he would be back in the fall. I was thinking maybe be a year off or something.
Yeah. Well, I think that's where our minds were initially.
Yeah. Yeah. And, if he doesn't make it, it's part of the journey. He's still got more steps to take before you get there, but he'll be back. I look forward to seeing him and giving him a hug. He'll probably tell me don't squeeze so hard. But you make sure he's going to listen to this, but make sure he knows he's always welcome here. You're always welcome in this house. If he might actually need something now because of medical needs. So he's got my number. He can always call. You guys are part of our family. We've really connected, and I value you, the McLeans, an awful lot.
Thank you, Tim.
And also, you told me I could ride on a tank, and
it's true.
But what's funny is, as we were doing this, Fort Riley was shelling, and I'm like, "Come on, guys! I'm talking to one of yours. What are you doing interrupting?"
I always like to say that's the sounds of freedom.
So, it is. Freedom has been really loud some days, like louder than ever before.
That's
like
good.
Freedom might have new toys, because Freedom's shaken our house a few times in the middle of Manhattan. But are you ever going to get deployed to Fort Riley? Do you want me to call the president? I will. I will.
I don't know. We'll see.
I don't know. They all know who I am.
We'll see. I don't know. I don't know.
It seems like
it's not for a lack of trying on my part.
Yeah. And there's a reason, it's got to be frustrating, but there's a reason. But it feels like a natural progression of things. And by the way, is it next year we have Army on the schedule at K-State?
In what sport?
Football. They're coming here for one season. It's either next year or 26.
Well, I was not aware of that. That would be awesome to be there for that.
Yep. And I'm
training for K-State, just so you know.
I wonder it'd be different if you'd gone to West Point. That'd be really conflicting if you're a K-State fan that went to West Point and you're like, go team.
Yeah.
But I've been pushing for a long time that we should be playing
that'd be cool.
home and away series with Army. Everyone who's all my fellow sports writing nerds have told me, if you ever get to cover a game there, it's unlike anything else.
Yeah, it'll be cool. I've never been. Gunnar was there visiting when he was trying to decide what school he was going to go to. And he said it was beautiful. And I think it'd be really neat for 1st Infantry Division at Fort Riley if the Army does come and play there, because they'll come out in droves to support K-State and to support, the West Point. So I think that'd be a really special thing, and it'd be neat if K-State can. You say it's a home and home?
No, this for now it's just a 1-game Army coming to Manhattan.
Okay.
It's in one of those non-conference games, but I've chirped in Gene's ear because there's like a series with Colorado that's coming up on the non-conference that they need to replace.
Oh, that would be cool.
And Army just had some openings, although they're moving into not conference, you say the American Conference, I think, with football scheduling. So they may not have as many openings as I thought, but I thought, well, they need games because UMass dropped a series with them because they're moving the MAC. It's very confusing. This realignment thing. What's that?
Army's a tough out. That's not an easy game. I mean,
no, it's a different brand of football, and you go up there and
yeah, it's tough out.
Yep, I hope it happens. Can't wait to see you guys again, and give Gunnar a hug if that's even possible. Make it hurt a little bit. Say it's from Fitz.
We're giving nubs right now.
Okay, that's good.
Kisses on the forehead. That's where we're at right now.
That's good. Well, give him one for me. Tell him to keep fighting. Don't think about how long the journey is. Just think about the day and what you got to do, and worry about tomorrow when it comes.
Absolutely. Thanks, everyone, and thanks, Tim, for having me on.
You bet.
Just want to say thanks for all the prayers and support for my son, and it's been a blessing. And Gunnar's going to be different, but I think he's going to be better different when he comes out of this, as well as everyone in our family. And it's thanks to God, and it's thanks to everyone that's been supporting us. So thank you.
Yep. Really appreciate it, brother.
Thanks. Go Cats.
He's great. He's great. Just very open guy. One of the things I didn't even ask him about was, to see him in his K-State gear and just have a conversation with him. He's just a dude, he's just a nice guy. And then you see him in uniform. It's like, oh, that's business. And then you realize this guy is kind of an important person in the United States military complex as he works his way up as now a colonel and in charge of all the tank training. If you're going to be a scout or a person that's on the tanks, you're going to find him and he's going to be in charge of training you. Just a really cool family. I look forward to meeting the rest of the family, and I really look forward to getting Gunnar back at K-State games, yelling his face off in that purple PowerCat jacket. His recovery is painful. It's daunting. But the fact that he's aiming to be back in the fall is remarkable. If you're a religious person, I don't know that it could have happened without the grace of God. Thanks for listening to another Life of Fitz. We've got someone brewing for next week. I don't know who, but we'll be back for more. Take care, everybody. I appreciate you listening to this week's edition of Life of Fitz. And thank you to all the great people at Blueville Nursery for sponsoring our show. This has been a Spirit Street production.